Okay, gents, let's now dish out our end of season awards for the Premier League 2021-2022 season. This is going to be fun. Let's get straight into it. Nick Mendola, I'm coming to you first. Let's do player of the season. I think we're going to have some debates on this, but who is your Premier League player of the season? And why?
This is going to sound nuts, I think, to a lot of people. And I promise you, I did it before yesterday. Joe can attest to this. I emailed him this on Saturday. It's Youngman's son to me. Harry Kane went quite a few times where he went more than a few games without scoring. I think Son only had 3 games without a goal or an assist or a goal contribution when he was on. I mean, he may be the kind of the elixir, right, that you put into the drink to strengthen it. And maybe I might want to temper this prediction or this call based on what Andy might say. But I also looked at the stats. He missed 8 games. They lost 6 of them, not in the Premier League, but overall. He missed 8 games. They lost 6. They won 2. One was, I don't even know how to say it, Joe. The Shrimps. Morecambe, is it? Morecambe? The other was Leicester. Those are the 2 wins they have without Youngman's son this year.
Wow. Andy, your player of the season?
I was going to make let's talk about and let's not forget son point there. Nick, go ahead and just pick him. I think it's interesting. 23 goals obviously ties Salah for the Golden Boot without taking a single penalty all season. I think there's a ton of value in that. And I don't know. I think it's Son. I genuinely do. But I will, if I had an actual vote, I would go with Salah because he did it over the whole of the season. Spurs' start to the season was so poor early on, and Son took a while to get going. He didn't really come on until Harry Kane came on and became more of the playmaker. And so I think he was a little bit dependent on, the service of Kane and obviously Conte coming in. So I do think on the whole, Salah and the fact that he pushed Liverpool, or he helped to push Liverpool because there's enough firepower there to within a point of the title. I think ultimately it goes to him, but it's very, very, very slim because the way that Son finished the season was some of the best form that we've seen from any attacker in the Premier League in a long, long time, maybe ever. It felt like every single game he was going to score a goal. It felt like every time he touched the ball, he could score a goal. And I know we get that with Salah, but to see someone else from one of the non-2 title contending teams, get into that mix, I think was very interesting.
So I get a vote in the Football Writers Association player of the season, and that usually you get the email and you have to vote quite far in advance at the end of the season. I went with Salah. He got my vote. He won the award. Worthy winner. But for this, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going for Kevin De Bruyne. I just think the way that he led City late in the season, the charge, the game against Wolves, which was ridiculous. It will get overlooked maybe because Gundogan scored, but the way he drove onto that loose ball, drove into the box, managed to pick out Gundogan at the back post to win it for City on the final day. That to me summed up the brilliance of De Bruyne. And we all know he's great in assists, but I think this season we've seen the hunger, how much it hurt him as well in the Champions League and how he got taken off in that semi-final and then City just fell apart. I do not think that's a coincidence. Of course, Pep was trying to rest him for the other games that they had, but he is that important. He is the heartbeat of Manchester City. They look to him. He's their reference point. He has the quality to score great goals, incredible assists. And I just cannot look past him as the top midfielder in the world right now and the top player in the Premier League. So I'm going with Kevin De Bruyne. That's who I'm going with. Andy, you'll jump.
There's a leadership component in that to De Bruyne as well with the goals this season. And I think that he, maybe more than anyone else in the team, they all saw that they didn't have a center forward, somebody who was going to consistently get them goals. And he was the one that said, well, then I will step up and do something about it. Whereas maybe everybody else was looking around, who's going to do it, looking at Pep, what's the solution going to be? How are we going to fix this? And De Bruyne said, I think I can go get some goals. I think I can push forward from midfield in a different way than I ever have before at, obviously the oldest that he's ever been. He is aging really, really gracefully. And the fact that we've been able to watch him in the Premier League for as long as he's been in the league, maybe the fact that this was certainly his best stretch of a season, probably not his best individual season on the whole, but you're right. The way that he finished the season, I for some reason, I kind of put him aside when I was thinking about the Son Salah thing because it felt so kind of 2-horse race. He was probably better down the stretch because he was doing it in the pressure of a title race and filling a void in a team that nearly cost them the title.
Yeah, he just kept popping up in big games, in big moments, and delivering. So that's why I'm going with him. But I was going to say he's aging like a fine French wine, but a fine Belgian beer. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to the next award we're dishing out, Young Player of the Year. I feel like Nick and I have already discussed this. Phil Foden, right? He's the obvious choice, player under the age of 21 at the start of the season. Bukayo Saka, really good. Jacob Ramsey, really good at Aston Villa. But Nick's, I mean, Foden's just next level, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that will stand out for me years down the line when we think about the Pep Guardiola era, and Liverpool for this matter, I think they've done this well. When we see a player coming up and they basically tell us, look, I know you want to see more of this guy, but trust me, the developmental plan is there. I think we spent 2.5 years thinking we should see more Foden. And this year we saw him as the guy who's been watching David Silva, who's been watching these other guys learn the system and practicing with them and doing their crap. And the fact that he's 21, I mean, holy cow, under 20, excuse me. This is to have this award be essentially his for 2 or 3 years. It feels like. I know Alexander-Arnold was in that discussion too. It's just insane. He's so special.
He is. The Stockport Iniesta is just nothing quite like him. Andy, you concur with that? Pretty easy award to dish out, I think.
I don't know. I kind of think it's Saka, honestly. More goals, more assists this season. It's not a statistic thing, but he played in all 38 games. He was ever present for the entire season. And I think for a young player, there is a ton of value in that, not just in terms of development, but I think showing that you are ever reliable for a team and that you are truly a building block piece. And he didn't have the David Silvas and the De Bruynes to learn from and to kind of emulate and kind of make his way. He has kind of made his own way into that Arsenal team. And so I think if Arsenal on the whole had been more successful as a team and been able to maybe finish top 4 or even push on and challenge Chelsea for top 3, then I think we'd be talking about this a little bit differently. But I think because Arsenal kind of, petered out at the end, I think he gets kind of lost in the shuffle. He had a really, really special season right on the back of what happened in the final of Euro 2020. That is incredible for a player of that age and that inexperience to just simply pick himself right back up and rebound the way that he did.
Feeling pretty good about England's future now, to be fair, with these two players leading the way. So USM&T fans, let me know what you think in the comments about Foden and Saka running at the US. No, sorry, guys. I couldn't help myself there. Okay, coach of the season. This is a tough one because there are 2 obvious candidates, of course. But when you start to look down at the jobs that some managers did in mid-table, Thomas Frank at Brentford, Graham Potter at Brighton, Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace, Eddie Howe at Newcastle for over half a season. Some really great jobs that they've managed to do, not at one of the big boys. So, Nick, who are you going with, coach of the season?
I'm going with Jurgen Klopp. I think that you can make an argument for like 7 guys, and you mentioned a lot of them. There are guys who are there at their jobs for less than like a half year or just over a half year that you can make an argument. But, aside from, and you guys know this, Andy and I had this discussion a little bit earlier, and yes, I'm a little petty. I get a little petty, but aside from the terrible excuse making, which he ranks like if there were FIFA categories, it'd be like tactics, 99, motivation, 100, post-game press conferences, 4. Like, it's just so like, oh, you're sorry, you're playing too close to your last game and quite a bit away from your next game. So
the other team is defending against you.
Yeah. That's a tough one. That he loves that one too. I just can't believe that they're not going up against a team that's vastly superior for them and trying to outscore them. Why aren't they doing that? So besides that, this guy pushed all the right buttons.
Yeah, I want everybody to know how painful it was for Nick to pick Klopp for that award. It really was.
Andy, who are you going with then?
I think we could easily pick Guardiola or Klopp. I think the mid-table managers are really, really interesting because you have some serious overachievers this year. You mentioned 3 of them, Joe. I throw Bruno Lage in there as well, and had Wolves not completely fallen apart the final month and a half of the season, I think he would have really been in that conversation. I'm looking at the table here. 5th fewest goals conceded this season, Wolves. The first team atop that list, they finished first. The second team finished second. The third team finished third. The fourth team finished fourth. The fifth team finished 10th. Now, they were pretty much locked into 8th with 2 months to go, and they fell apart, and so they tumbled down the table. But if you kind of look at what he picked up in the summer, taking over for Nuno, there was a transitional period. You had the questions around Raul Jimenez. Really, really strong first season from Bruno Lage. I think they've got a lot to build on going forward. But I think ultimately in the end, I do think it's going to be Pep for me, just barely because of the center forward thing. And I think that was slightly out of his control in the summer. And so he went in, I think you could say when the season started, if this was an actual race, Liverpool started a half step ahead of Manchester City, because I think you could look at the entire squad and say they've got not just one, but 2 players in every single position. And so they were going to have the slightest little advantage. And Pep, I think, through the things that Pep does, and sometimes he overcomplicates, I think made up for that half step and got 3/4 of a step advance. And so they won it by, just that little bit at the end. So I'm going to go with Pep.
I'm going to go with Pep as well, but only just over Jurgen Klopp. Again, I just think the way that City almost clicked into autopilot down the stretch just shows what again, we talk about Liverpool being mentality monsters, but this Man City team, we always just take it for granted that they turn up week in, week out and deliver these incredible displays. And when they really needed it most to win their 4th title in the last 5 years, they did it on the final day. Only just. But so it's really tight between them and their teams to who gets the awards, who gets the trophies at the end of the season. Let's be honest, they both deserve to win the Premier League title, but City were just slightly more perfect than Liverpool. That's the best way I can put it. I do want to give Graham Potter a lot of love as well, though. I think outside of those two, he did the best job. The resources available, when you look at how much Brighton have actually spent over the last few years, the style of play, the clear philosophy, the way that they beat some big teams home and away. There's one team from this season that they finished on a high. Obviously, the finishing was their issue, right? In the middle of the season, they just couldn't finish their chances. They were a bit streaky. But if they get some consistency in the final third over the summer, whether that means new players coming in or just regain that clinical edge, that is a team that I expect to be up where West Ham have been the last few years, pushing 6th, 7th, 5th easily. And that would be an incredible job. And then I think Graham Potter, whenever a big job comes up at one of these big giants, maybe Liverpool, maybe Man City in the future, he's going to be the very first name on that list for me. So that just shows what a great job he's done. Okay, we've got so many categories, so let's rattle through a few of these now. Best signing of the season, Nick Mendola, go.
Marc Cucurella from Brighton. I just think they only have so much money to spend over the last second half of the season. Not only was he a perfect fit, but he was probably their best player. And maybe it's all the hair, like popping off your screen saying, hey, look at this guy. But I thought he was fantastic and the right fit for them.
Yeah, sideshow Bob-esque, right? At left back for Brighton. So, okay, Andy, what about you?
Palace getting Conor Gallagher on loan and developing him into, not developing him into, but showcasing him as maybe the next bright, brilliant English midfielder, I think was a big one. And I'll go with the combination of Bentonchevsky in January for Spurs, because bringing in Bentancur and Kulusevski and I think Sunday was the most apparent it's ever been. Just the difference in quality that those two added to the team, whereas Harry Winks or Oliver Skipp were starting in midfield, Rodrigo Bentancur, whereas Lucas Moura, who I think is like a right wing back probably at this point of his career, being your third attacker with Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, it's just a little bit different. I think that's what ultimately pushed Spurs over the line for 4th.
Yeah, Kulusevski was my pick, to be honest. I mean, Luis Diaz was excellent as well. I think there's some really good January signings that helped boost teams across the league. I think with Diaz coming in, that helped keep Liverpool, get them back in the title race for sure. And had they won the title, I think he would have probably been one of the main reasons why they did so. But Kulusevski, incredible the way he just kind of brought Kane and Son to life in that trio, and they all just worked off each other and just looked a better fit. And then obviously Conte had defensively Tottenham a lot more solid, but those three were the X factor, and that's why they finished in the top 4. Plus, he has an incredible song that the Tottenham fans sing. So any ABBA fans out there, look up the lyrics to that song. And the ginger from Sweden definitely delivered for the Tottenham fans, both in the songs and on the pitch. Okay, let's rattle through a few more categories. Best goal of the season. what we going with? Because Mohamed Salah for Liverpool against Man City at Anfield, I was there on that day. The noise when that went in, the way he manipulated the ball around about 5 defenders, it seemed, and then put it into an impossible angle of the far corner of the net. I don't think we're going to beat that, but you had Ronaldo screaming, you had some cracking free kicks from James Ward-Prowse. Just want to get that in there. But Nick, I think Salah probably wins it for goal of the season, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there just wasn't, and frankly, I don't think it's going to win goal of the decade. It's not like the Sun goal from a few years ago that you're just looking at it like, holy cow. I think it was the goal of the season. I don't think there are many that are that close, but I think this category is a little. If it didn't happen against Man City, we're like, oh, cool goal.
Yeah, so he did the same thing against Watford the week after, right? Wow, so it was like, okay, you could pick any of those ones. They were incredible. Andy, any other goals stick out for you?
Pulling on the heartstrings, Christian Erickson's first goal after coming back, I think is just, you talk about things that you'll remember forever from the season. His first game back, his first, I think, assist in that game or the next game, and then getting the first goal, and just the reception and everything, welcoming Christian Erickson back into the football world was something that, was very special.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure there's going to be so many goals that we've actually forgotten, but those are some of the ones that really stick out to us. It was another season of incredible quality and goals that stood out. Let's finish with the best game of the season. I'd argue that it was Liverpool-Man City, the 2-2 at the Etihad, or maybe even the one at Anfield. But I think the one at the Etihad, it was later in the season. The stakes were so high, the intensity, the fact that they were still both in the Champions League at the same time, FA Cup semi-final against each other. That was just the perfect storm, right? Of just summing up how good these two teams are. So
sure, let's go with that.
Okay. Any other crazy games that I've forgotten there? Like, I'm trying to think. There were some good Man United ones, late chaos, the Tottenham win, right, Andy? I mean, there was some pretty wild games, but I'm going to go with Man City Liverpool as our collective best game of the season to sum up how great the Premier League is. Okay, so we have a lot more awards we're dishing out on Pro Soccer Talk and NBCSports.com. We have our team of the season, best XIs from the 3 lads on the screen, which I'm sure everyone will agree with wholeheartedly, 1 to 11. So, head over to the website and check that out. But what a season to dish out the awards. There's a lot of worthy winners, and there's a lot of people who didn't even get honorable mention there that should have deserved it. But quite frankly, there's so much good stuff that went on across the Premier League. So what a season, gents. Absolutely incredible.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.